Seattle's progressive voter population is about to get an absolute rude awakening to the realities of socialism. Socialism has never worked. It won't work now. But hey, let's go ahead and elect a socialist mayor and we'll just see how it goes. How's it going to go? Let's get into it. Here we go. Some pretty good commentary here that I agree with from Charlie Harger of Cairo News Radio. Seattle's new mayor eyes progressive taxes. You've heard me talk many, many times about Let's Go Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, talking about progressive taxes. That just means taxing those who have money. Big business, wealthy individuals. Let's tax them and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. Oh, socialism. It works for those who don't. But will middle-class homeowners pay the price? Absolutely. Because what is middle-class home ownership now in Seattle? 1.2, 1.3 million one? Right? That's middle-class home ownership. That's starter entry-level housing. You got nothing for $500. You got nothing virtually for $750. Everybody is middle class, right? And you are house rich, which progressives will want to tax. Oh, they're just salivating. Socialist mayor salivating over how much they can raise taxes, and you guys will just have to bend over and take it. Just, this is the greatest thing ever. Seattle just elected Katie Wilson, and I get why. People, especially young people, voted for her. They don't have the life experience to recognize socialism won't work, and this is going to backfire, and things are going to get more expensive. The very few things that Katie Wilson says that she's going to help improve, affordable housing, I mean, kiss that one goodbye. There's no affordable housing in Seattle. You don't have the ability to build more, and you've got so many layer after layer after layer after layer of costs and expenses going into housing and regulation and over-regulation and red tape and just nonsense that you don't need, but progressives love to have. Affordable housing, you got no choice. It's just not happening. It's not happening. They're drowning here. 30 years old, decent job, working hard, 60 to 70K a year, and you're looking at $3,000 in rent. That's pretty normal. Home ownership, that's fantasy land. Something had to change. For better or worse, that led voters to fire Bruce Harrell this month and tie their wagons to Wilson. This was not Bruce Harrell's fault. He was a bad Democrat. But you choose a bad Democrat over a socialist any day of the week, because a bad Democrat at best is going to be somewhat more moderate, than a socialist. But we got the socialist. You guys voted her in, and you guys are going to have the fun experience of seeing how socialism has typically always failed. Give me a good example, of somewhere where it's just really doing well. Cuba? Venezuela? Right. So what's her solution? She told us last week. This is Katie Wilson's solution. Very committed to making sure that we're using our existing resources as effectively and efficiently as possible, spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of $1 million on building out the homeless industrial complex. Yeah, you need to cut all that crap. Because build it and they will come. And they've come to Portland, they've come to San Francisco, they've come to Seattle in droves. So that whole housing first, progressive policy, ideology, terrible. Get rid of it. It doesn't work. And you're spending taxpayer money you don't have on just nonsense like that. So we will review the ways the city is spending money, and I think we're going to do that given the size of the budget deficit, and I'm not adverse to ending spending on programs. When have Democrats ever been averse to spending on programs that were maybe well-intentioned, but they were first implemented, but aren't fulfilling their goals? That's what Doge did, and Democrats just got all into Twitter. Oh, all worked up. Oh, so worked up. They're cutting our programs. So we're going to be doing our very best to be the best stewards of public resources as we can. No, you're not. You're going to do an average job for a socialist, and it's going to be really shitty, and it's going to suck, and the constituents are going to go, well, we tried. We tried. We gave it a college try. Didn't work out. I do think we will need to pursue, here you go, new progressive revenue. Taxing big business, taxing those with money. The wealthy, the ones that already pay well over half of all the taxes. That's weird. When you get into, we need big business to pay their share. They already do. You numbnuts. They already do. Think we'll need to pursue new progressive revenue in order to turn our priorities, fund our priorities, and make sure we're delivering the services people in Seattle need. Well, they ain't getting them now. Why would they get them in the future? Right? They're not getting, we got homeless people living all over in the streets. We got drug addicts running around. We got people buying and selling stolen goods. We got human trafficking. We got sex trafficking. I mean, public safety has not been a priority in Seattle for a long time. I mean, real public safety, right? There are several progressive tax options I proposed as part of my platform. This is coming from an individual who basically has zero life experience. She worked in a boat yard, which there's nothing wrong with that. I could use some help on my boat, but the dude that I'm going to ask to help me on my boat ain't going to be the guy that I'm going to elect into mayor's office in Seattle, where you got, a $9 billion budget? You got 41 different departments. I'm not going to have Boat Boy come and help me run the city. Not happening. So we're going to have city staff looking into developing those into legislation, taxing the F out of business, taxing the F out of constituents, because you're going to have property taxes are going to get raised. They're going to get raised. Things are going to get more expensive because you can't have all these social programs without footing the bill somewhere, somehow. And so all you numbnut millennials that elected Katie Wilson as your socialist mayor, you're going to get a real reality check on how this doesn't necessarily make your life any better. I don't know yet exactly what the timeline is going to be on that. Okay, yeah, I understand that. Translation. Lots of new taxes to fund social housing and government services. 100%. 100%. But she promises real estate taxes are only targeting the ultra wealthy. Oh, no, that's not how this game is played. It's not. It's just not. Your neighbor who bought their house in 2009, talking about Seattleites, isn't ultra wealthy, but they're about to get squeezed anyway. 100%. Remember them? They paid $350 for a place in Greenwood. Today it's worth $1.2 million. On paper, they're millionaires. In reality, they're a teacher making $90K a year. Same job, same income, just happened to buy before the boom. They can't spend their kitchen sink. They can't deposit their front door at QFC. Their wealth is trapped in walls they can't eat. Property taxes have nearly tripled on that theoretical wealth. Now Wilson wants to lift the 1% cap so taxes can keep pace with inflation and growth. You needed to spend on a bunch of ridiculous stuff that nobody needs that isn't helping. You know how it's not helping? The hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into the billions that Seattle has spent on homelessness. Is homelessness fixed? No, it's gone up. It's gone to the moon. West Coast, best coast. Between Washington, Oregon, and California, we have like 35% of the entire United States population of homelessness, because build it and they will come. We built it and they're here, and they ain't going away because they're a bunch of whacked out nut jobs on drugs with mental issues, and you don't have the facilities, you don't have the ability to build the affordable housing at what, 800K a pop per unit of housing? You don't have the ability to do that because you don't have it in the budget. But their salary isn't keeping pace with anything. Getting back to the teacher. Sure, Wilson's capital gains tax wouldn't hit them if they sell, but that's for stock options and business sales. But her property tax increases, those hit every single year. When that teacher finally can't afford the property taxes anymore, who buys their house? Not the young family Wilson wants to help, and she's already getting help, $2,200 a month from her mom and dad to help pay for childcare. Seattle's expensive, and it's only gonna get more expensive. Seattle didn't used to be expensive. When I was in college, I had an MLS printout that was full on page, 8.5 by 11, of homes, single line homes in the Wallingford area of Seattle that were under $100,000. And probably half of those were under $50,000. We just had house after house after house. And this was 1980, whatever. Long time ago, granted. But Seattle hasn't been wildly expensive like it is now. And the reason it got there? Progressive politics. You have taxed the absolute you-know-what out of everything. And you've constricted the supply of housing. And you've caused everything to go through the roof expense-wise. Look at the whole Starbucks nonsense going on. Katie Wilson's out there, our new mayor is out there protesting against Starbucks. So Starbucks shuts down a bunch of stores. Folks are out of jobs. That didn't work out all that great. No, it didn't, comrades, did it? No, because that's what happens. When Starbucks can't make a profit, you know what they do? They shut the store down. Not that hard to figure out. But you guys haven't seemed to figure that out. You're gonna, but it's gonna be the hard way. Not the young family Wilson wants to help. They still can't afford it. It goes to someone genuinely wealthy who can handle any tax increase. Yeah, let's get down to affordability. There is nothing a socialist mayor can do to help housing become more affordable. Nothing. They do not have the ability, they do not have the tools in their toolbox to actually make a difference. And you know how that point will be proven? What are housing prices today? What will housing prices be midterm and end term of Katie Wilson? More. What will rent do? Will rent drop? How's rent going to drop? You've got some of the biggest shortages of apartment building coming up. We know this from building permits. Rents are going to skyrocket, right? They just are. They just are. They're gonna go up. Those 7%, those 10% caps a year, you're going to see those. And you're going to have a bunch of people going, I don't get it. We elected a socialist and she said she was going to make things cheaper. What happened? Yeah. The Wilson administration might try to stop this with restrictions on investor purchases. Vancouver, BC tried that in 2016. Prices went up anyway. The foreign buyer tax cooled sales for a few months, but affordability barely budged because supply never changed. And it won't change here in Seattle either. You got too many tree huggers and you've got too much overregulation. You don't have the ability to actually change the supply of housing, which might change pricing a tiny little bit, but not significantly. You might go from $1.2 million to $1.150 with a flood of new construction onto the market. But probably not, right? And it would take so long to get that into place because real estate is inelastic with the demand-supply curve. By the time you actually get things going, prices are going to be up. Within a year, prices were climbing again, a sign that you can't regulate affordability into existence. You can't. You have zero control over it. It is market forces. That middle-class homeowner isn't the enemy. They remember when regular people could live here. They want their own kids to afford Seattle. But these policies make them collateral damage in a war against wealth that they don't actually have. Some see home equity and think privilege. But there's a difference between Bill Gates and a nurse who bought before the prices exploded. One has actual money. The other has theoretical wealth that only becomes real if they leave Seattle forever. That's what I'll be doing. That's what I'll be doing at some point. I don't live in Seattle. I would never buy a home in Seattle. I told both my kids, don't buy in Seattle and don't live in Seattle. One ended up dying in Seattle. How's that? Right? Yeah, perfect. Oh, yeah, that's great. Trump warns Seattle could lose World Cup, calls Seattle Mayor-elect Katie Wilson a liberal communist. This was kind of classic. We got to read this. President Donald Trump said Monday that 2026 World Cup matches scheduled in Seattle could be moved to another city. That's not going to happen. He's not going to need to move them. Things will be rocky because, things are always rocky in Seattle because you got a bunch of libtards running around. And libtards are kind of crazy, right? Progressives, kind of crazy. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. Why is it so expensive? I'm shocked. During an Oval Office exchange with reporters, Trump was asked about Seattle's role as a host city, and about the city's newly elected mayor, Katie Wilson, who was described by the reporter as a Democratic Socialist. You know what? The Democratic Socialists of America wouldn't even take her. They wouldn't even take her. Because, a bunch of stuff, right? Or beyond, I'm not sure. That's more than socialist, Trump replied. He went on to describe Wilson as a very, very liberal/communist, adding, I watched her over the weekend. Wow, there's another beauty we got there. Okay, well, that's when Trump goes, we all can't be married to a first lady who is a former supermodel. That's not reality, but for Trump, it is. See the ladies that Trump had earlier in his life? Yeah, they were not a communist elect of Seattle. Trump said the administration is monitoring Seattle closely as city prepares to host World Cup games in 2026. He suggested he would direct federal officials to relocate their matches if he considered the city unsafe. It's going to be fine. What's going to happen in Seattle? We're going to have another Chop Chaz in protest of the World Cup. Maybe. God, that would be exciting, wouldn't it? That'd be something else. Just take over. What area of the city could they take over that would be excellent? Not downtown. That's kind of old school. You know what? They should take over like an area in a really wealthy neighborhood. That would be kind of fun to see because all the wealthy people would just absolutely flip out. Why do we have black bloc clad Antifa in our neighborhood? Why are they graffitiing our homes? Well, because that's what they do, you numbnuts. Now, it's going to be fun times to watch how someone with as a little experience as Katie Wilson has, literally, she worked in a boatyard. I think she worked some construction. I think she worked as a barista. And I think she worked maybe secretary. I don't know. I'm going off memory here, and I don't want to get things wrong. But, not exactly jobs that scream out, hey, I am great at leadership. I am great at budgeting. When her parents kick in so that they can afford to live in Seattle, so that they can afford to have childcare, even though her husband isn't working. There's so many questions. And yet, this is Seattle for you. This is Freeattle. This is literally how things go. Because the progressive ideology is so twisted that it doesn't recognize reality. It doesn't recognize, hey, I can't afford here. Where can I afford? That's the equation here. It's like, hey, I'm a Starbucks worker and I can't afford to live in Seattle. So I need to up my game and get a better job, not whine about how corporate my neck, my back, my paycheck is lack, right? And none of that nonsense. That is just absolutely, progressive ideology that's gone sideways. It's, comrade. No, it's going to be great. It is going to be great to see how this goes down because we already know how it's going to go down. They're going to tax the absolute heck out of Seattle folks, specifically businesses. Businesses will leave in droves because they won't be able to afford it because they already can't afford it. They're already leaving. And then who's going to be left? The same numbnuts that elected Katie Wilson into office. You're going to tax them. Whether it's through, taxing big commercial buildings, whatever it is that these folks live in, rents are going to have to go to the moon. We've already got some of the highest gasoline prices. We're going to tax that, I'm sure. We've got at the state level, we've got literally billions and billions, 9-point-something billion in new taxes. Get out the popcorn because this is going to be good. Get out that popcorn. And when I mean good, I do not mean positive for the residents of Seattle or Washington for that matter. It's going to be a wild ride. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again for joining. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.